Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video I'm going to take a look at an excellent high-performance M.2 NVMe cooler from Thermalright. This is the HR10 Pro. Now these, in full disclosure, have both been purchased by us for review on the channel. Now maybe you're watching this video for the same reason that I went out and bought these, and that is the fact that NVMe drives, although their performance is increasing very much, they're also getting considerably warmer. And there's one thing I don't like, and that is any devices generating too much heat. Maybe it's a subconscious thing, maybe I don't know, it's a fear thing, I'm not entirely sure, but I do like to keep my devices cool and also quiet at the same time, which I feel is quite beneficial. And also when it comes to NVMe drives, if they get to a certain temperature, they will tend to thermally throttle. So if you are transferring larger data files, such as us here with making videos, obviously some of those big video files can be quite chunky, so transferring them off to a drive or onto our NAS, etc. It's just a lot of throughput on the system, so it's nice to be able to keep the drives nice and cool, and especially for video rendering purposes when there's a lot of data being passed through the data bus. Anyway, with all that said, we'll take a look today at the HR10 Pro. There's actually a couple of versions of the HR10. So there's HR10, the standard version, which doesn't have any fans on it. There's also the HR10 Pro, which does come with fans. And also there is an HR10 Pro Digital, which also has an LCD type display on it. So it gives you other system performance metrics, which potentially might be useful. We'll maybe do a video on that a little bit later on. That one I feel is going to be a little bit more complicated because it does require the installation of Thermalright's TRCC software, which we've done multiple videos on already. So it's just another piece of software, and also it does require a spare USB port to transmit the data to and from. So potentially this is maybe the easier one to do because all this requires is a blank M.2 slot, or one which has the ability to fit in a cooler, and a spare PWM header on your motherboard to power the fan. Now, of course, if you want to, you can get a PWM adapter, so you can just run the fan at full speed all the time. Potentially, I wouldn't do that because sometimes, especially with these fans, they do seem to have a rotational speed of somewhere between 3,000 and 6,000 RPM. Although I have found in some of my testing today, if I just set it to 100%, it will get up to 8,000 RPM, and at which point it does become noticeable. Although I have done previous testing and it only gets to about 6,000, so I'm not too sure what's gone on there, but certainly these are pretty quiet. So if you're concerned, thinking, oh, just another fan of my system making noise, actually in normal use, anywhere between 3,500 RPM and 6,000 RPM, you basically cannot hear it at all, at least over any of the other system fans or even like the whine of a graphics card or power supply, that kind of thing. So in terms of noise levels, these are absolutely fine, so don't be too put off with the point of being a fan. Now also, there are two models available. We have one in grey or silver, which has a little bit of a white element on it as well, so potentially that might fit in with certain builds. That's the one I've actually installed in the system behind me. That is on an MSI X670E motherboard, which has a PCI Express Gen 5 M.2 slot at the top. But unfortunately, it does come with a very weedy heatsink. This one here. This is, yeah, pretty useless for Gen 5 drives, I think personally. And some of the temperature tests we've got later in the video, you'll see how this fares against a dedicated heatsink, at least one with fins and also a fan. But if that colour isn't up for you, then we've got the black version as well, which is kind of like a nice matte black finish on it. Both of them, characteristic wise, both identical. Both will support 2280 M.2 drives, and yeah, very cheap as well. There's some slight weirdness with the pricing. So the white one, I believe at the moment, is around about £11 on amazon.co.uk. Affiliated links will be in the video description. The black one, I think, was £15. So I'm not too sure why the difference is in pricing. Potentially wherever you're shopping, the prices may be more similar or whatever. Let me know in the comments section if you do check out the pricing, how different the prices actually are considering what is done to them. I can imagine the black one would be more expensive because it is actually kind of painted. It has that black coating on it, whereas this is more of a raw metal finish. But yeah, you wouldn't have thought it would be basically an extra third of the price. Anyway, I'm digressing. So I think the best thing to do is if we take a quick look at this actual unit and see what it's all about. So we did actually take a look at this in one of our live streams. So if you want to check that out, you're more than welcome to. I'll try and link that in the video description. But essentially what this is a dual heat pipe M.2 cooler, which also has a small, I think it's a 30mm fan on there. Again, rotational speeds between 3,500 and 6,000 RPM. Potentially your motherboard may recognize it slightly higher. Some weirdness with smaller fans these days, but it is very stable. And again, very quiet at the lower end of those speeds. As you get to 6,000 plus, yes, you are going to hear it to some extent. But it's actually quite a nice design. It's basically not much bigger than a 2280 drive itself. So in terms of compatibility, you should be absolutely fine. And also it has double-sided cooling. So not only have you got the main side, where generally you tend to have your RAM and your controller, it's also got rear side as well. So if you've got a double-sided drive, that's fine. Single-sided drives, also fine as well. It does come with its own thermal pads, and it's very easy to do. There's a couple of screws to undo on both sides, and it is a compression fitting. So if you have a drive which is slightly smaller or slightly larger than the norm, then don't worry, it will adjust to fit pretty much any drive, which is excellent. And also when it comes to the actual cable for the cooler, it is a little bit on the long side, so it is 45 centimeters in length, so 450 mil. That I think is actually quite useful because depending on your cable management, you may wish to kind of route it around your CPU cooler to get to the nearest header. Of course, if you've got a header which is very close to where your M.2 is, then you can always bunch up the cables and cable tie them out the way. But I think it's nice that they've actually thought about it, that some people may not have a suitable header nearby, so it does give you that option of flexibility, and you can always cable manage it out the way if it is too long. So yeah, overall, nice little design. It seems to do a very good job. I have done some thermal testing already, and I am quite impressed, hence why I'm making this video. So I think the next thing to do is to give you a demonstration of how it's actually installed onto a motherboard and put a drive in there, just so you can get an idea of the process. And then after we've done that, we'll take a look at some of the results I've got from my own testing on the system behind me. So we've got the unit here. So the first thing you want to do is take it apart, and they do actually include a handy screwdriver for that particular purpose. So there's just 2 screws to undo on each side. The screwdriver itself isn't great, so I'm actually going to swap out for my own screwdrivers. Obviously, you don't have to, but for the case of this video, I'm going to do that. So 2 screws on that side, and we've also got 2 screws on the other side. So with the screws removed, the bottom section comes out of the way, and you'll notice in there is also a pad in there for packing out drives should you need it. Also, the base section does have thermal paste pre-applied, and there is this removable strip, and also on the unit itself you've got the same. So you've got thermal paste pre-applied on both sides. The actual size of it is 0.5 mil, so if you do ever need to replace it, it's pretty easy to do. And also because we have that adjustability, so you can kind of close it in or out. So if you wanted to, you could put thicker pads on should that be necessary, or if you mess these up, again, nice bit of longevity. It's nice that it's not locked into a specific size. So with that done, let's take a look at a drive. And what you want to try and do is, because this has the Thermalright logo on it, now depending how you're actually going to be installing your drives, and depending where the actual M.2 slot is, you can do some investigation, but ideally you're going to want it so that your drive is facing this way, so the pins towards the front. That tends to be the way that most drives attach, but again, depending where you're putting it on your motherboard, that may differ. So let's take a quick look at our motherboard and see where we need to put it on our specific installation. So in this motherboard, this is a MSI B650 Tomahawk Wi-Fi. So I'm actually going to use this slot here because this one doesn't actually have an M.2 cooler on it. So this is one we're going to choose to use. So normally you'd have your drive and it would just install like that, and that holds it into place, but obviously no cooling whatsoever, which isn't ideal. So what we're going to want to do is kind of match up our cooler. So the Thermalright logo is on that side. Obviously, if you're not too bothered about the logo, you can do it the other way if you wanted to, but I think for the actual ease of use, and also for the fan, so the fan is going to be at the bottom, and convection generally allows heat to rise, so you probably do want to have the fan at the bottom. But again, if you don't want to, you can have it the other way around. It won't make a great deal of difference. With most PC cases, there's so much air turbulence with fans that it doesn't make a great deal of difference, but I think for the sake of the looks, we're going to do it this way round. So we're going to want to have our drive with the lugs sticking out this end. So let's turn this upside down, and we'll take our drive back out. And we can remove the protective film from the top there. We can grab our drive, which is going to be now upside down because our chips are going to be mating with this surface here. And just have it so that there is a little bit of an overlap at the end. And if you get a closer look at that, you can just see the actual M.2 port is just slightly out from the edge. and also there's a little bit of an overlap at the back there. Hopefully that makes sense. So it doesn't have to be exact. Obviously, if you do want to make sure it's lined up, you can do, but that should be absolutely fine. So what we're going to do now is to get the base section. We're going to remove the pad there, or remove the cover from the pad rather. If you don't want to use the pad, obviously you can just leave that film on there and put the protective sleeve which comes inside. So just a little pad there. I would say for better cooling, you're probably best off cooling it completely. But again, the choice is yours. So just get that snugged up, and then all you want to do is on the side, if you look at where the screw holes are, just make sure they're lined up so you can see the screw holes and you can put the screws back in. So that's a pretty straightforward thing to do. Let's put the screws back in now. And what you can do whilst you're doing this is just put a little bit of pressure on the top and the bottom, just to give it a little bit of a squeeze, just to make sure that it is actually in the right place and making good contact. And you don't have to do the screws up really tight, just until you feel the resistance there. I would do one screw on one side and then do another screw on the opposing side, just to make sure that the unit is actually flat on the bottom. Again, giving it some little bit of pressure, just to make sure that it's making good contact. Do the screws up, and again, just until it's snug. It doesn't have to be overly torqued down, otherwise potentially you could damage the actual thread that is machined into the heatsink. Now we can go ahead and do the final two screws. And there we go. That is the drive mounted inside the heatsink, the enclosure itself. So now we can actually put it onto the motherboard itself. Now this part is really easy, so all you need to do is to line up your M.2 port with the M.2 key, as you would do for a regular installation, and on a slight angle, just make sure it's wiggled all the way in. Then put the drive down and then push over the plastic retainer, which hopefully you can see there. Obviously, if you've got a screw down one, just put the screw in however is appropriate. But there you go, I think that looks pretty cool. And then really all you need to do is to just consider where you're actually going to plug in your PWM. So on this particular motherboard, we've got PWM headers literally underneath it. So we can just plug one in there, and then when it comes to the cable management, you can just tap your wires down at the bottom there, and obviously put them down behind the motherboard so it doesn't have wires showing everywhere. I think that's a pretty neat installation. Obviously, depending where you're doing it, you may need to route your wires somewhere else. If you're using a black motherboard with all black components, it's got a black cable, so you should be able to kind of route it around wherever you see fit to give it a nice clean looking installation. But I think that actually looks great and is going to be considerably better than what was on there previously, i.e. in this case absolutely nothing. So there you go, that is the installation done, and obviously having a small chunk of metal like this isn't going to be anywhere near as good as this, especially being that there's a fan in there as well, just to circulate some of that airflow. But let's take a look at some of the results I've got from the system behind me. This is using an Acer Predator 2TB drive, PCI Express Gen 4x4, with transfer speeds of up to 7400 megabits per second, or megabytes per second, I should say. So let's take a look at some of those results. So if we look, first of all, this is Crystal Disk's disk mark. I've done the stress test, 5 loops. And this is the MSI motherboard Gen 5 cooler versus the Thermalright HR10 Pro at 6000 RPM, which is effectively silent. And we've got our low and high temperatures here. So at the top there, we've got high temperatures, but we'll take a look at the bottom. So these are the lowest recorded temperatures. So the MSI stock, we're looking at 26 degrees. So that was when the system was first turned on. So it was basically stone cold. The Thermalright, unfortunately, was a lot bit hotter, because when I did the transfer, the drive didn't have time to cool down, so it was still giving off some heat anyway. So yeah, that is hotter, but in general purposes, that is going to be absolutely fine. I'll try and do some updated testing, and I'll put it in the comments or actually underneath this video now, so you can see what the results were like from a cold boot. Where it does get interesting though is for the high temperatures, so that is the top 2 bars. So as we can see there, the stock M.2 cooler with the motherboard was giving us a drive temperature of 72 degrees Celsius, which actually did flag up a red mark in Crystal Disk info. So that's generally not a good thing. And with our heatsink installed, we got down to 59 degrees Celsius. So that is a significant drop. Much better, and also 1 degree beneath that threshold. So this is a proper stress test, it's unlikely you're going to get these results yourselves unless you are doing benchmarking. But for me, this puts my mind at ease. Now, if we take a look at the actual performance numbers, there isn't actually a huge difference here. If we'd have run the test for a longer period or for a larger size file, then there would be more of a difference, but I thought this will give you an illustration. So to start off with the MSI on the left, and we've also got the Thermalright on the right hand side. So you can see in general, the figures are either pretty much identical or slightly better, which is always a good thing. So the main one that we normally look at is the read and write speeds. So as you can see there, the read speed went from 7,353 up to 7,435. So a nice little jump there, although the write speeds did tail off a little bit. So we got 6884 versus 6822, but still within the ballpark. And again, you've got Windows background tasks, all that kind of stuff. Next, coming down to the sequential 128K reads, we've got 7,418 for the stock and 7,436. So yeah, a little bit of an improvement there on the other side, and the same, we've got an improvement on the write speeds as well. Overall, in general, the speeds are pretty much the same or slightly better, but we are running at a considerably lower temperature, which hopefully should be giving the drive a longer lifespan. Now, obviously, most drives these days are warranted for 3 to 5 years and a certain amount of terabytes written. So a lot of it is kind of academic anyway. But I think personally, firstly, it looks really nice. I actually do really like the look of these devices. And also it runs a little bit cooler, so it is putting my mind at ease somewhat. I have got a drive which is actually particularly difficult to cool, and that is the Oracle one, which we reviewed relatively recently, the IG740 I think it's called. And for some reason, the actual memory modules or the controller, one of them is slightly higher than the other. So there seems to be some sort of gap there. So I'm gonna have to play around with the thermal pads there to try and get some better results on that. That is going into a system that we'll be selling off. So I will do a quick update on that as well, just to let you know how that went. But yeah, that drive gets up to kind of like 80 degrees C plus quite easily. And also a lot of drives now actually have multiple sensors. So they have one sensor for the NAND flash and one sensor for the controller. So you may find that some of them are slightly up or down depending on your situation. Actually with this one, because the sensor 2 or sensor 1, whichever way around it was, one of them actually dialed in and was going up to kind of like 80 plus degrees, which again is not great. I can't imagine the drive's going to last a very, very long time with that like that in continued operation. But overall, for the sake of a tenner or 15 quid, depending what you're buying and where you're buying it from, I think these are actually a pretty good shout. And yeah, I'm pretty happy that I've got them. I'll probably get some more for stock just to put in systems where potentially, like this particular one, we were missing a M.2 cooler on one drive anyway. So potentially we could swap them around and move them around and maybe put that on the primary slot. Again, choice is entirely up to you. But if you want to run your M.2 drive slightly cooler and you want it to be cool, quiet, and not cost a fortune, I think these are a pretty good shout. But let me know what you think about them in the comments section below. I think that's going to wrap this one up. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.